You are all set, sir. I'm ready to go.
All right, we will call the meeting to order on YouTube Live. And with that, the first order of business is February's meeting minutes. I'll make a motion to adopt those.
Second.
No objection. Adopted. Move on to item B, the resolution to accept state bond funding. I will turn that over to the town manager.
Good morning, everyone. Matt Hart, town manager. Thank you for attending today's committee meeting. 2B, Mr. Chairman, I'm actually showing as the resolution amending our community development block grant, the capital improvement program, and the Westmore Park Fund. I don't know if you're seeing that. If you want to refresh your browser, but Ms. Rubino Turco would be in the best position to speak to this. Both items 2B and 2C will be on the council agenda for next week, and we just wanted to have a chance to brief the committee, take any questions you might have before we submit to the full council.
Yeah, sorry, I had to refresh here. So yes.
Which one would you like to start with?
So we'll start with B, with the Westmore funds.
Sure. So this is Helen Rubino Turco.
We don't
as
have,
you know,
just FYI, that document is not loaded on.
Councilor Sweeney, I am in the process of uploading it. So if you'd like to give me 2 seconds, you can refresh and have access to the document.
All right, why don't we just move to C and then we'll come back to B since it's not up.
Okay, Matt Hart, town manager. I can start with C and turn to Ms. Rubino Turco. So very, very excited about this. We've reported this to the council earlier. Through the great work of our state delegation, the town will receive an Urban Act grant in the amount of $2.5 million to assist us with the $3 million purchase price of 100 Mayflower Street, which, as we all know, we plan to redevelop into a community center, senior center, teen center, and hopefully a library branch as well. So we had budgeted $3 million in the capital improvement program for the purchase. We will now only need to allocate $500,000 of that amount for the purchase, and that would leave us with roughly $2.5 million that we could use towards the larger project. So this is really great news. Again, want to thank the members of our delegation and the mayor and staff for working to obtain this. And we'll be looking for the council's endorsement next week.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Moving forward on this, really, really important project for the town, and I'm very excited about the receiving of this, and I'm excited to vote for this. So I don't know if anyone else has any comments on this item.
Sure. This is Helen Rubino Turco. So I just wanted to say this is pro forma. The bond commission granted us permission to apply for this. So we're just going through the motions now to follow through with all the paperwork that's necessary.
Okay, great. Good to hear. We will then move on to item B as resolution amending for the Westmore funds. I think Helen, you were going to try there.
Sure. Yeah.
There it is. Okay, it's up now. All right.
Yeah. So I know that Gina Verano was taking one last look to make sure that all the wording was correct, but this has been on the books for a while. And this really just happens because when we do a CDBG project, sometimes they come in over budget, sometimes they come in under budget. And because of the way finance works, we have to reallocate, we have to announce the reallocation of when something comes in over budget or under budget. So in this case, The Westmore Park Hunter House, when we bid it, the bids came back higher than we anticipated, so we need some additional funding. Part of that is coming from CDBG, part of that is coming from the Westmore Park Fund. And so that's what that portion of this resolution is about. Another is we're going to replace most of the fence at Southwood Park. This is in the lower, it's almost in Newington, along the Piper Brook. And we're going to replace the fence there almost in the portion of the fence that we're going to replace is mostly eligible for CDBG. There's a portion that's not eligible because it's in the floodplain. And so that's coming in over budget. A lot of things we're seeing are coming in over budget because of supply chain concerns by the contractors. So we're watching that very carefully. So that's a case where we need to allocate some additional funds. And then the resurfacing on Fairview, Lowell, and Warrenton Avenue, these were completed slightly below budget. So again, we're going to release the funds that had been allocated to that back into the CDBG fund to be reallocated towards other projects. So that's what you're seeing here.
Great, thank you for that. Anyone has any questions?
And we're likely to come back at the next town council meeting also for some additional reallocation for our CDBG CV funds. Some projects came in over budget, some came in under budget, and we're going to do the same thing there. But that requires us to do an amendment to our annual action plan. And so we have to post that for public comment before we can bring it to you. So there's a little bit of a delay on that. We would have liked to have done them all together, but way it goes.
Well, thank you, Helen, for that.
You're welcome.
We will now get back to the order of this and move it to item number 3A. And I think, Andrew, you are going to touch on the masterclass subscription for libraries.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Andrew Piro. I'm the Adult Services Librarian at the West Hartford Library. I'm filling in for Carol today, who's away. Yeah, we looked into Masterclass as a resource to offer to our patrons. I reached out to Masterclass and they said they don't have a library product at this time, and that if we wanted to, we could do something like share one individual login, which seemed pretty unusual to me, you know, in dealing with online resources like that. That seems like a response you wouldn't get directly from a vendor like that. So I saw that some other libraries were offering it. So I reached out to the director of Dimmick Library in Pennsylvania to see how they handled it, because it was on their site that they're offering it. And they communicated that they've been getting mixed messages as well about being able to offer it or not offer it. And when they went to renew this most previous year, they were told that the libraries can't offer it from a different sales representative at Masterclass. So given the confusion and it still seems like they're kind of lining up a way to offer this service to libraries, we're gonna hold off at the moment. It's not something we'd like to introduce only to have to pull away from patrons in a few months, realizing we're doing it wrong, or you know, that they no longer want to do that lending model. So it's definitely on our radar, and we're gonna just keep tabs on it and see moving forward if we can offer it.
Okay, thank you so much for that quick turnaround and looking into it. Really appreciate it. I think it'd be a really cool thing for us to offer.
Yeah.
And totally understand you don't want to get it shut down right when you get it started. So,
Right.
So thank you, and we will move on to item B on the Eisenhower Pool Report with Ms. Rubina Turco.
Sure, this is Helen Rubino Turco. At our last meeting, we discussed the Eisenhower Pool failure, and you had asked for some additional information. I believe Councilor Winograd had asked for some additional information about the background regarding that pool and its history and its upkeep and the failures that we've seen. And so we did a more detailed examination of the failure and with some photographs to support the narrative. And we still continue to move forward pending your approval with the design of this, the redesign of a new pool and a pool house, bidding the work and constructing a new pool during the construction season next year, and hopefully to have it reopened by June of 2023. I think the question was about the failures, and did the year off contribute to the failure? And that was explained. Yes, it did contribute to it, but it wasn't the only factor. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Mr. Winograd.
Sorry, Ben, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. I'll try again. Thank you. And I even remembered to identify myself that time. Ben Winograd, Town Council, which I always forget. No, thank you. I did ask for some additional information. The report was helpful. I appreciate that. I think we can sort of chalk it up to some extent to one more unanticipated issue dealing with COVID. And again, whether that was the real cause or not, it's hard to tell. But certainly it's an old pool, and it beyond its life. I think it wasn't really a topic of the thing. I mean, I think the broader question now is the timing of getting the new one going, and obviously, I don't know the engineering of it. Certainly, if there's, I'm sure we've tried, but if there's any way to get it in sooner, would be better. But I certainly understand that it's not an easy project. But it is, unfortunate if we're going to lose the pool for next season.
Yeah, I would follow up on Ben's point there. I'm looking at the timeline here. I guess I'm confused of why there wouldn't be able to be construction. But why would it take from March to November to do the construction of a pool?
So we've had some experience building pools, a Fern Ridge pool and also Beachland pool in certainly within the last decade. And like anything, the devil is in the details, right? It's about having a good design and having a really good plan so that it can be executed properly. But there's two components. So there's the pool and the pool house. And I'm hoping that they would concentrate on the pool first. We may be able to speed up the timeline if we demolish the pool this fall using maybe a contractor to remove do some of the heavy lifting this fall. But again, we're waiting for some approvals to our, and changes and updates to our capital plan. But really, even if it was completed before, by autumn, obviously we still wouldn't reopen. But it does take that long, in our experience, to complete a project of this size.
So to that point, Mr. Manager, is it possible to? I think we have played around with this idea of reimbursing ourselves or moving things around with COVID-related money here. This is obviously a COVID-related expense, but as opposed to keeping things on the capital improvement project schedule to move it along with the money that we already have on hand from the federal government.
Matt Hart, Town Manager. Thank you for the good question, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we're proceeding under the assumption that you're going to approve the adjustments to the capital plan, which we will be bringing to you, soon. And for Eisenhower Pool, we may want to use rescue plan funds, but even if we don't do that, we have sufficient capacity in our capital improvement program that we can just adjust the schedule for other projects so that we can move this one up. Recall it was in the plan, but a few years out. So we're moving it up. We're acting under the assumption you're going to approve that. Helen and others are working on the bid specs now so that we can get this out to bid and complete it within the schedule that Helen articulated. I do know we all wish we didn't, it wouldn't be closed, or that we could open it for some portion of next season. But again, given our experience and the time we need for design, et cetera, it's an old pool, an old complex. We're likely going to want to make some changes, make it more contemporary, et cetera. We believe that that schedule will hold. But we are operating under the assumption, again, that you're going to approve the adjustments to the capital plan.
Thank you for that. If anyone else has any questions. All right, seeing none, I will move on to the Leisure Services update.
Good morning again, Helen Rubino Turco. We've already discussed the Mayflower property. As you know, we do have the resolution to officially apply for the state bond funding at your next town council meeting. And I believe the closing date for this property is in mid-September. So we're very excited about that. And we are developing recommendations for forming a building committee that would help advise on the overall development, the community outreach, and the building design portion. So Matt Hart may have some additional information about our process for the building committee. We do, as you may recall, have food share distribution that right now has been at the Faxon Library, thanks to their flexibility. But they have resumed their regular hours now because it's fall. And so we do plan to resume the distribution in that neighborhood at the Mayflower location as soon as the closing goes through. So we do anticipate that the September 28th food share distribution will be at the Mayflower property in the parking lot. In our capital improvement area, we've already discussed the Eisenhower Pool. We are underway with the Walcott Park, the western parking lot. This is the side on Chatfield near the tennis and pickleball courts. This work is being funded by a state grant that we received several years ago for the renovation of Walcott Park in general. So that work is underway, and then we'll be turning our attention to the east side, where we have hired a designer engineering company to give us some concepts about locations of renovating the eastern parking lot, replacing the building and the restroom building, and replacing the splash pad. At Kennedy Park, we're also focused on several projects, one of which has been awarded and will happen this fall, and that's the replacement of the aging irrigation system there that serves the soccer field, the baseball field, and inside the pool area. And then the last project that we have that is almost set to start is the replacement of the front stairs and the ramp to the Hunter House at Westmore Park. And that's being funded, as I explained earlier. The ADA portion of it is being funded by CDBG, and the regular able-bodied portion is being funded by the Westmore Park Fund. We do plan to have that up and going probably during the Feast on the Farm, which is scheduled for Friday, September 24th. And the other item of note there is that the Garden Club is having this Saturday is having a big tour, and the West Hartford Garden Club is a great community partner of the Leisure Services Department, and they oversee some sustainable. We're working with them to work on building some sustainable gardens in our parks, as well as they maintain several locations around town that are in public spaces. On the social services side, We are reacting, obviously, to some recent storms that have happened. We also have a new staff member that is starting on September 13th. We're very excited to welcome Samantha Innes to our team, and she will act as the liaison with the police department, as well as doing some covering crisis management, mental health cases, outreach to panhandlers, for example, and a variety of other tasks that are related to substance abuse and addictions in that population. Finally, the Unite CT mobile bus will be at West Hartford Town Hall on October 1st. And this is the Unite CT program as a state program. It's funded by federal dollars that assists residents and landlords with rental and utility payments for qualified households. So people apply, either the homeowner applies, or the renter applies, or the landlord applies, and the funds are paid directly to the provider, so either the landlord or the utility company. But the program provides up to $10,000 in rental payments to landlords and $1,500 in electricity payments to the utility companies on behalf of these qualified tenants. So we have information on the Unite CT mobile bus. The bus is equipped with computers and volunteers to help people upload their information and make the applications. We have flyers in English and Spanish, and we're actively publicizing this throughout the community. That concludes my report.
That's great. I really appreciate all of that detail. On that, I just had a few follow-ups. I think we talked last meeting about where things are in regards to the scholarship application process, and you guys said you were going to get back to us. Where are we on that?
Certainly. So this is Helen Rubino Turco again. You had asked about our online registration program and whether people who were applying for a scholarship could also apply online instead of having to do it in person. And we contacted our provider, and we're working with them to develop a way to allow that to happen. So I don't have an update yet, but they are willing to work with us to figure out a way of assisting that process.
That's great. That's great to hear. Yeah, just if you could just let us know kind of like what you're thinking for a timeline, because I think it would be good to announce that, maybe have a goal for the winter programming.
So our fall and winter programs are up online now. That went live in the middle of August. So registrations are coming in already, but we do hope to have this in place before we do our spring, summer, and our summer camp program. So hopefully by January, we'll have this in place.
Okay, that would be fantastic. I had a few other questions, but I'll come back to Mr. Winograd had a question.
Thank you, Liam. We haven't talked about it for a while. I wanted to see if we have any updates on the dog park. I know last we had discussed that there was some real estate that was being looked at, but
yes,
like I said, it's been a while, so I just wanted to get an update on that.
Sure. I touched base with Attorney Verano the other day on this subject, and she is still working on untangling the complicated ownership of a particular tract of land that has not yet been resolved, but it is on her list of things to do.
Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Matt Hart, Town Manager. Just to add to Ms. Rubino Turco's report, one of the reasons why this is taking so long, it's just very labor intensive from a legal perspective. There were multiple owners of a relatively small parcel, various estates, etc. I think some of the individuals didn't even realize they had such a small ownership stake in this particular parcel. So it's just quite a process that Attorney Verano has to go through. contacting various estates, complying with probate court requirements, notice periods, etc. But she is she is getting there in a steady fashion.
Do we have a timeline?
I don't know. I mean, I think at least through this calendar year, if not a little bit beyond.
So when
I mean, I guess my concern here is that, I mean, we haven't even discussed the specific site as to whether it's even suitable. I mean, we haven't, you know, I mean, so I understand initially this was, you know, let's get this thing sort of the ownership wrapped up and then we can look at it. But I mean, we're not at step 2 yet. We're at step 1 of sort of, and I understand they're sort of orphan property, so it's, you know, it's not a huge burden. But I mean, again, we're not even approved. We're not even sure the site works. And I don't know if it's been shared. It certainly hasn't been shared publicly. So, you know, this has been obviously a really long-standing concern, and the need is still there. And certainly with the amount of COVID dogs, if anything, it has become an even bigger concern. And frankly, it's one of the few safe social activities one can do, you know, these days. You can actually see people and be outdoors, and I'm, you know, long drive to Simsbury. So I guess I mean, you know, I'd really like to see this thing move faster.
Mr. Bino Turco.
Certainly, we share your desire, and we understand the role, the important community building role that dog parks play in other towns, and we would really like to have one in West Hartford, or 2 or 3. We embarked on the resolution of the ownership of this particular property because we thought it was well suited for a dog park. So we think that once we get that ownership resolved, that this could be something that we could move on fairly quickly. But again, we are also open to looking at other locations in addition to this property. And many of the locations that we looked at have been well suited, but people didn't want them in that location because it was near their home. So again, we want to be very we want to work with the community, but we also want to be very respectful of the neighborhoods that we're looking at. So we'll continue to do that.
Sir.
Thank you, Matt Hart, Town Manager. Just a suggestion, you know, maybe as a future agenda item, even for next month, you know, we could review the history of the sites we've looked at in the past and the pros and cons, particularly those that we thought were very well suited but met some neighborhood opposition. And perhaps the committee and the council would like to revisit those locations, you know, with the understanding that we would want to engage the community in the conversation. But some of those, you know, it's been some years, so perhaps community sentiment has changed. I think a lot of concern initially was impact on property values, et cetera. I think we all realize that this dog parks are now seen as a very important amenity, commonplace for communities like ours, enhanced livability and arguably property values as well. So I think that would be part of the conversation that we'd want to have with the abutters and those neighborhoods. Again, my suggestion is, you know, we add this as a future agenda item and review the sites we've looked at previously.
Yeah, I would suggest that we just, if the staff could put together a document and we could review it. I don't think we need to revisit it through a full-on conversation. I think it'd be great for us to have that information, but I don't think we need to revisit it in a full-on sketched out conversation. I trust you all and I know Mr. Bino Turco has been working on this quite a bit. I don't think we need to rehash the arguments. It'd be good for us to see the other sites. And then obviously with this still pending, it would be great to, you know, have that move, but it would I think it'd be just good, a little refresher in like kind of a very brief overview It doesn't need to be very detailed. I don't want to. Ms. Rubino Turco has a lot on her plate. This doesn't need to be an extended version of that. Just kind of a quick rehash would be great for some of the folks on the council. Mr. Winograd.
Yeah, and just I agree with you, Mr. Srini. The other thing I'd ask to be considered is whether or not we can, whether there's any reason at this point to maintain secrecy around the location where we're making the acquisitions of property. Again, I at some point, I mean, I maybe start having that conversation and start getting support for that, or hear opposition and respond to concerns of anyone nearby. But I'm not sure at this point there's still a reason to not to sort of put out there what's being thought about, so we can actually look and see whether or not it's a good site. I'm not asking for the let's announce the address today, but I'm just maybe some thought about whether or not at this point there's any reason not to put that out there.
I think that's a good point. I have a few more, just a few quick questions for the town manager on the human services report. With the recent flooding that we've had in town, I didn't know if there was efforts made by staff that were needed to help people, like if they were moved out of their homes. I know there was some really serious damage done. I actually was dropping my son off at Elmwood for the last couple of days of busy bees, and was able to witness the overrunning of the Beachland Pond into Trout Brook, and noticed that the entire soccer field was underwater over there. And just wanted to kind of see if there were any like real significant damages to some of the leisure services areas, and if there were efforts needed to assist families in town. As in my neighborhood, there was real significant damage, for the public. I live in the Morley neighborhood, which traditionally gets overrun by water. Ironically, my street is being completely dug up by the MDC at the same time, for issues to help with water. But I don't know if the town manager or Mr. Rubino Turco had any update on that. Mr. Manager.
Matt Hart, Town Manager, thank you. Yes, we've had extremely wet weather, 3 major storms. The engineering division has fielded over 200 inquiries, the largest number ever, with from residents regarding flooding at their individual properties. Basements being the most common, either sewer or clean water, drainage, yards, etc. And they are still responding to those inquiries. On the relocation side, we did have a couple of properties that were impacted. One apartment building in particular on the Hartford line off of Prospect and Prospect Lane. It's an active relocation case. Astrid Calderon and other members of the team have done a very good job, I think, supporting the tenants.
What's the address for that?
Yep, and I'll turn to Ms. Rubino Turco in a moment. She can provide more detail, but we still have some number of people displaced there that we are providing relocation benefits to, as we are required to do under the law, while our code enforcement team, building inspection, and the fire marshal in particular are working with the property owner to get the property back online. There was significant flooding in the basement that damaged the heating and electrical systems. I think at one point they had 7 feet of water in the basement. And as you all may have read, there was significant flooding along portions of Prospect Avenue in Hartford as well. So maybe we can turn next to Ms. Rubino Turco, who can give us a more detailed update on this particular case. And I think it's the only active one we have remaining. related to this weather event.
And just on that, before we hand it over, Mr. Hart, there were reports of the town contributing to that potential overflow in that area by having maybe not properly drainage of overflow water. Is that something that we are looking into? I know it's not for this committee, but while we're on the issue.
Right. No, we've heard from, several residents have made that claim. Some have even filed legal claims against the town, and our risk management department is processing those. We have a long-standing project, as you know, to review our stormwater system. And that is under the purview of the Community Planning and Economic Development Committee. The council, you've been very good about supporting the studies, and we're just about to complete the third study, looking in particular at the north central part of town. And we will have an update for Community Planning Committee next month. But, I think we would probably dispute in most instances whether the town was at fault here. Some of these, the extreme weather we had, even if we make all of our desired improvements, we're still going to have street flooding, and some individual properties are still going to be impacted.
Yeah, I don't think there's any debate about that. I've seen and heard that
Right.
there may be a potential issue there, but again, I don't want to get out of the lane here. Ms. Rubino Turco, why don't we move more forward to the human side of this?
Certainly. So the property at 415 Prospect, actually, there's a little lane that goes off of Prospect Avenue. And this is the two buildings on either side of that lane, on the north side of the lane, on the south side of the lane. Each has a trio of buildings, all of which have a common basement. So the three buildings on the north side of Prospect Lane share a basement, and the three buildings on the south side of the lane share a basement. Both of those basements flooded. 24 units in all were affected. Insofar as the electricity was off, the alarm system was off, the hot water was off. So they had to be relocated temporarily. And we're hoping that the homeowner, the property owner will make the necessary improvements. Obviously, our engineering department and our building department and our health department was over there observing and remarking on the progress and the situation. And it has been our town engineers' remarks that these properties were being serviced by a private storm pipe, and that perhaps that storm pipe was not sufficient to handle this volume and may have been clogged. And it also joins a pipe under Prospect Avenue that actually is serviced by Hartford. So again, I'm not the expert here, but we have reviewed the situation carefully, and I would defer to my colleagues in the engineering department and the building department to, obviously to address that in more specifics.
Yeah. So how is the town managing the displacement?
Sure. So all of the tenants have been housed in a variety of settings around the region, various motels, hotels, and it's our obligation to provide those relocation services. And then typically the homeowner, the property owner will reimburse us for those afterwards. But it's our obligation to offer them until the situation is resolved.
Got it.
So you had some additional questions, Councillor Sweeney, about the impact of these storms on leisure services facilities. So Beachland Park, for example, that soccer field is underwater at least usually about 3 times a year. And it is in a floodplain. It absorbs that water. The water recedes, and the field is generally still in good condition. We did not have any serious damage at any of our other facilities other than the temporary flooding in a couple of places like golf courses and that kind of thing. So we were not affected in a significant way.
That's great to hear, and I'm glad that we are taking care of those folks. Can we have an update on where folks are at the next meeting?
Certainly.
Good to hear that you guys are on top of that. And then lastly, this is just a request through you, Ms. Rubina Turco. Can we have the folks from the bridge come to the next meeting? I want to hear from them on kind of how return of school has been, and how they're maintaining programming and that sort of thing.
Yes.
I assume it's a little bit early to get a report on that from them, with them just coming back this week. So, but would love to hear how they're doing. I know that they were really active over the summer and trying to continue to engage with, members of the teen center, which I appreciate quite a bit. Unless Ms. Fay or Mr. Winograd have any questions, I will move on to the library update. All right. Andrew?
Thanks. So I have remarks here from Carol that I can read. I could go item by item, or I can just read through the whole report. I don't know what your preference is.
What I would just do, we try to just highlight it. We have the report, so if you want to just highlight what's in the big things for you, that'd be great.
Sure. So the first item is continued reopening. The libraries are back to pre-COVID hours after Labor Day, which is this week. So that includes evenings and fall Saturdays. In compliance with the town of West Hartford mask mandates, staff as well as visitors over the age of 2 are still wearing masks at all times. Library programming is continuing as remote. We did have some plans back in like July to offer some hybrid things, but most things are still remote or they're outdoors if it's safe to do so. And the workforce has returned, and we've been bringing in some new part-timers to accommodate the increase in hours, and that's for all 3 branches. Some other exciting things going on. We got a new tech lab that's going to be at the main floor of the Noah Webster Library. The West Hartford Kilfoyle Foundation, or they received a Kilfoyle funding request in the amount of $32,000 to improve the tech lab. There's a subcommittee of the Physical Spaces Committee who have been meeting to discuss future plans for the space. So this is in the former computer lab on the main floor. The public computers have been pulled out, and we've been putting those throughout the main floor, both in the reference room and the gallery, to accommodate for social distancing. Space is now available for kind of reimagining services for the future. The tech lab is going to have dual uses. We have orders in place to bring in some technology to allow patrons to podcast, use sound equipment, video editing equipment, a Cricut device, AutoCAD, video production, and studio equipment, as well as editing tools and software for digitizing analog content. And then in addition to that space, this will also function as a study area as well, which is something that we frequently get asked about at Noah Webster Library, where are the quiet places to study, or even meet with a tutor, or that type of thing. Doors been installed on the entrance to allow for privacy. I looked out my office this morning. There was people working in there, getting some painting, some wall repairs done. So it's coming along, and hopefully ready for use by October is our goal. Elsewhere at Bishop's Corner, we have a smart locker also provided by Kilfoyle funding. It was ordered on June 2nd. It's expected to be delivered and installed by the end of the summer. So actually this one's, I believe, arrived last week. I'm sorry, I've been out. I took a few vacation days this week, but I think last I knew it was pretty imminent that it would be delivered to Bishop's Corner. It's an Element 4 Tower 21 locker system, and this will be available so that patrons can come to Bishop's Corner after hours and pick up their materials. So it would just be like an access code that they enter and then the locker would open up. So similar to like what you would see at, lockers at Whole Foods for Amazon. There's a library director plaque that's been installed at the Noah Webster Library near the circulation desk, with room for future directors. Just as a side note, that is an active search for our new director. I think the closing was later this month, so that's coming along as well. And hopefully we'll have a new name to add to that shortly. I mentioned the gallery before, so that's the art gallery area. There used to be a small computer lab on the main floor of Noah Webster, so we're reimagining that space now, and part of that included making some improvements to the acoustics of the area. So the first phase of our acoustic panel project is now complete. In July, we installed acoustic panels in the gallery area of the library. Soundlight acoustic wall panels totaling 565 square feet of coverage were placed to provide sound reduction in the area for quieter space for patrons using the computers and studying. So this is beneficial, especially now since we did move the computers out of the computer lab, because the space is a very active area for people both using computers, accessing the collection, and that sort of thing. And we have a computer technician in that area as well to help. Also in the gallery area, we were able to get a study pod through the American Rescue Plan Act, and the funding amount of $24,250 and an additional Kilfoyle grant of $8,000 to get a study pod in that area. So what it is just a modular meeting room that will be installed on site. It's a four-sided structure with a louved roof that is ADA compliant and offers a private study space for individuals by reservation. So there's two glass sides, so it adds connectivity to the area visually. But like I said, it's an area where you can hold private meetings or conversations. Structure fits the needs for patrons to be an enclosed space within a public building. It'll be fitted with a table and 4 chairs, as well as possibly additional furniture. So again, this has long been a request from patrons to have these quiet areas. So hopefully we can get this up and running soon. I believe we reached out to the company, and as you know, production schedules are behind across the board for a lot of things. So they're anticipating maybe like a mid-October delivery, and then from there, hopefully we can get it up and running quick. Next item is the community center. The library board and library foundation, as well as library staff, support the move to the Faxon Branch Library to the new community center. Look forward to being involved in that planning process and outreach to the community and stakeholders. Services have been slowly ramping up pretty regularly throughout the summer and even last spring. Homebound service resumed on July 27th. So this is our volunteer-led service that deliver library materials free of charge to West Hartford residents who are temporarily or permanently confined to their home because of illness, disability, or advanced age. So those people can access this service. There's information on our site, or they can, and it provides a number that they can call and then get signed up for the service and get those books delivered to them. Book sale is now operational as it was pre-COVID. So donations are being accepted at all buildings for that. It's just, anecdotally, it seems like people have been at home clearing things out. So we've gotten a lot of book donations too to get us back up and running. And then another item I'm pretty excited about, hopefully to expand some new business services at the library. So we're in the process now of accrediting some library staff members to become notary, to offer notary public services at Noah Webster Library. Initially, we'll probably roll this out with one staff member, hopefully by early October, and then we'll expand it from there to other staff members. So this will be in conjunction too with other businesses services. So we hope to have some counseling with resume writing and business startup planning. We did have one program pretty recently that discussed kind of entrepreneurial leadership skills, and that was a well-attended event. I don't have the exact number, but you can see that there's definitely a need and a request from patrons for that type of programming. Partnership projects and outreach. So as Helen mentioned, the mobile food share van continues to visit the Elmwood neighborhood, parking the Faxing parking lot, and it sounds like that's going to be changing in September. Faxon Library is a distribution site as well for food bags donated by the Fern Street Universalist Church. This is a long ongoing program that continues today. 11 candidates and 5 alternates in grades 9 through 12 from pupil and private schools in West Hartford have been chosen for the mayor's youth counselor. So sorry, that was a little confusing. I jumped topics. But our teen librarian, Carrie Karp, along with other staff members, have been forming this mayor's youth council. So I believe the representatives for that group have been chosen. So meetings will begin in September and occur monthly. The candidates submitted resumes and essays. They were interviewed by Carrie Karp, Carol, Christopher Dutton from the Bridge and Family Services, Dr. Scott Ratchford from the West Hartford Public Schools, and Councilwoman Carol Blanks. The members of the council will determine which action projects they will complete in the first year and how they will interact with the town council. And then lastly, I touched on programming, just to review what's been going on here with programming. Library patrons of all ages have experienced a robust schedule of programming during the summer. Adult programming continues to be remote, as I mentioned, with 369 participating so far this summer. Adults have enjoyed programs such as the New England Road Trip, Music for the Birds, and Container Gardening. Teen programs have been a combination of remote and in-person, with over 129 patrons attending, including the Harry Potter birthday trivia, Minecraft meetups, and a virtual camp for girls in grades 8 through 12. And they met others from multiple towns in Hartford County and Springfield, Massachusetts. And children's programs have been held outdoors with 391 patrons attending at all 3 library buildings, which include visits from zoo animals, hula hooping, outdoor games, crafts, and story times. And children's program will remain outdoors through the fall as weather permits. And then hopefully we can deem it safe enough to have those library programs indoors later this winter. And that's all I have.
Thank you for that update. Really appreciate you stepping in today. I don't have any other questions at this point. I don't know, Mr. Winograd, Ms. Fay, if you do.
I'm good.
Mary?
Thanks.
Sorry, Liam. I was just saying I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Okay, no problem. And with that, I'm going to close it, but I want to just, next, we'd love to have an update, just keeping an update on the folks that were displaced, have the bridge at the next event, and then, if there are updates on the dog park, that would be ideal. And if we could just, Helen, if there's a way, maybe with the combination of the bridge, I think the idea is to kind of get an idea of how the return to school has been, in some shape or form. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Matt Hart, Town Manager. I'd like to thank the staff for their good reports today. On the dog park, what we can do is prepare a quick memo, just describing the history and locations we've looked at in the past. And then we can also check with Corporation Counsel as to when we can discuss the potential location, maybe even starting an executive session if permissible. Does that work for you?
That works great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, let everyone get back to their busy days, and thank you all for the staff for your reports, and we will see you next month.
Thanks, everybody.